This is Dave Monk, your Prairie Monk, WAFT Champaign 90.1 on your FM dial. And this is a video version of the program I did today. The video gives you a chance to see other things. We're dealing with a detention pond, which is a big dig. It took out the housing of a couple of blocks of housing, and I'm standing on the regular level, and it's probably 20 feet down to the bottom of the pond. The intent is to detain water after a storm in this catchment area and let it out slowly so it doesn't flood the campus town nearby. It's a multi-million-dollar effort, and I rather like the style. It not only combines the practical aspects of water management, but it also allows people to recreate and just to enjoy. In front you'll see trees and rocks, country stone, and 3 little plots of prairie. Behind the trail is a boneyard creek which comes through at a lower level, having passed over some waterfalls, and there's an impoundment further south, and we'll get to that. There's a convenient parking lot around the corner. People come and enjoy to run on the area, and you can see the parking lot, which is quite convenient and used a lot by people who come from outside. This is a feature of Midtown between Champaign and Campus Town, and then on the other side is a banner. There's a road that crosses between the North Pond and the South Pond. It's on White Street, and buses use it a lot. The buses are high enough for you to see both ponds. The walkways are definitely not rectilinear. They curve, and they can be handled by most bicycles. In various places there is prairie. You can see some of the yellow is very definitely prairie, and you can perhaps hear the waterfall as the Boneyard Creek comes out from under University Avenue. Most of the prairie seeds or prairie plants have seeded already. We're looking right now at it's a yellow coneflower. They're called grey-headed coneflower at this time of the year because the seed head looks like the head of a grey-headed gentleman. The Boneyard Creek, which goes under University Avenue, in distance where you see the cars, that's University Avenue, and a very busy street. And this is 2nd Street, and there's a little rain garden here. It's actually on top of the concrete pipes underneath, so it gets its moisture from the streetscape, which has a little slope in it here, and in front of us is prairie drop seed, and prairie drop seed is rather refined prairie grass. It is a clump grass, and you see the clumps, and you see the purple cornflower seed heads at the moment. Behind is some New England aster, and right nearby is a clump of little blue stem. So we just roam around here a little and let you get an idea of this horticultural planting, which is very close to prairie. I'm going to walk you around so you could see that what you can do with landscaping. I'm rather pleased with this detention pond because of the trails, and water does come down. It comes in a pipe which is over to the left, and the moist area has iris there, or more swamp style plants, and sometimes it has cardinal plants which are very much in need of water. So sometimes if you have a dry summer on the streetscape, they don't get as much water as they probably should be. Right here you can see the pipes that bring moisture from streetscapes. Probably bring a few other goodies too. And there's a stray cat that uses the pipeline too. One of the plants that flowers in the fall is a common milkweed, common goldenrod, and this is a good specimen of a goldenrod. Some of early season's sunflowers, the seed head we can harvest at the moment for seed propagation. The blue flower is New England aster. It's one of the last flowers to bloom. And you have to know that when you manage this sort of prairie, you have to be aware that some plants flower early and some plants flower late. And you have to be careful to remind people who mow that it all doesn't happen on the 1st of August. We're photographing through prairie grass. It's dropseed. Now we're looking at some evening primrose mixed up again with dropseed. It's an interesting yellow flower, and it flowers mostly at night. There are trees and shrubs that are probably only 10 years old already, but give them 50 years and they'll be very interesting features on this little prairie. We're looking in the direction of flow of the Boneyard Creek. Remember that we're standing on top of it, on top of its concrete pipes. Stones are good for sitting on, a country rock and sedimentary rock, and not glacial erratics that come from Canada with glaciation. You can see one tall plant there. I think it's a prairie dock just from a distance. Now we're looking at the outage point of the underground boneyard with waterfalls that you might be able to hear. And there's one gentleman standing and enjoying the environment. The trail goes past a little piece of prairie that has been transplanted from another place. We pan a little, you can see the rest of this particular site. There's another site in the distance, and yet another site in the distance again. We'll go and see those sites. Right now I'm heading down the trail to a conversation area. It's quite nice. And prairie is planted alongside the trail. Most of it has gone to seed by now, but frost aster is still here, and right in front of us is boneset. We'll move on. Sometimes some cultivars. This is a introduced species that is very tall, and its fruiting bodies stay up over the winter. Sunflower in context, some of the sunflowers can get to be 10 feet tall. This is a stiff-leafed goldenrod. Flowers later in the season as well as the common goldenrod. The common goldenrod is more like a feather duster. This one has a flat top of blooms. If you look up high, you'll probably be able to see some of the silhouette of the taller plants. The big broad leaf of prairie dock. it's had a conflagration with a hailstorm. Its leaf is very cold because it evaporates its water and that cools the plant. Rosenweed. All the prairie plants have names that would indicate that the settlers that came here had to get rid of the prairie in order to use the rich soils underneath for pasture or for agriculture, and that continues to today, some of the richest soil in the world. Big blue stem waving its seed head in the wind. When you have acres of it, it's rather intriguing. It can be 8 feet tall. It tends to fall over in wintertime. You'll see that just to the left there is some big blue stem that is leaning over, and that's where we have some conflict between people who mow and people who are doing native things, because the native plants don't maintain a very formal stance, and this leaning over prairie could be in the way of a mowing team. A nice little plant of frost aster and with boneset in the background. Nice stand of common goldenrod with insects working the flowers for pollen and nectar. A nice stand of big blue stem. It's a clump grass. It's not like a lawn grass. And it probably has a mile of rootlets, as distinct from some other plants that have tap roots. Stand of wild onions. This is on the wet plot that we will hopefully have some wetland species growing. Prairies were very thick and biodiverse, and it was very hard to find your way through them. If you got off a train that it was terminating at the time at Ludlow, you could lose your life trying to walk through this to Champagne. This is a cup plant related to dock and compass plant and rosinweed. Its leaves form a cup which will capture water when it rains. And it's already reached its peak, so we perhaps will pan up to see what we see when it's at its peak. It goes brown, and that's why it gets to be a problem for people who are used to manicured gardens. It doesn't look as formal, and it isn't. It's a sunflower. It's been kind of eaten. Which indicates that there are lots of insects and lots of creatures that make their living on the prairie and from the prairie. And so do farmers, because the soil is rich, and it's rich in biodiversity. So this little prairie will bring back some of the richness of the biology that's around the roots. We don't know much about it, but it's there. A stand of Indian grass. It grows very well. You can almost get it to grow in one season, whereas most perennial prairie plants take quite a long time to grow. But the grasses grow faster, that they can also dominate. So you try to encourage the broadleaf plants, which are very interesting, but often take 5 and more years to come to flowering so that you can see them. The roots go down first. Looking through some Indian grass to some rocks in the background which are glacial erratics. They came here with glaciation from Canada, and they're often striated because they've been on the bottom of glacier, or they've had a hard life. They're in the boneyard. They're rather more expensive rocks than the country rock which we sit on. Have been bowled over and tumbled many, many times. So this is giving you an idea of the native rock that we have that is in our farm field sometimes. Not a lot, because most of these rocks dropped out of the glacier before they reached us. So you might have to pay for a 3-foot glacial erratic in the vicinity of $200. They're that scarce. Not everyone wants to see the tall prairie. They would like to see the boneyard, so this area has been weeded also and cleaned out some so you can actually see the creek. We're coming to a Logan Street bridge, which is actually White Street, and the buses go across it, and there's a archway underneath, so creatures can move from this area of the landscape to a deeper pond on the other side. Here the prairie has been mown, and I think it's mainly to let you see what the landscape is like, and there's also quite a few glacial erratics just before you go into the underpass.
Yeah.
There's another conversation area with seats and a stairwell to paradise. Some areas mown. It's quite okay. We like to see the native get some expression, and actually the lawn lets you see the prairie from the trails. Here's good prairie right here. Now we're going up out of the detention pond. A nice stiff-leafed goldenrod in front of you. And you can look back down the stairwell to give you an idea how much water could be impounded here. A nice stiff-leafed goldenrod in front of you. We're about to cross White Street, and this is a bollard. And a bollard is designed to prevent cars from using the 10-foot wide trail There's one in the distance, and these can be unlocked and dropped down to allow service vehicles to use the area. Now you're looking at the southern pond, which is deeper and more scope for birds and geese and ducks and herons and kingfishers, and all sorts of creatures get to be here. There's an aeration device to my left which is making the ripples, and the creatures like to get to within a certain distance of it, and they think they enjoy it. There's a little barrier that separates one part of the pond from another. I can see 3 or 8 ducks there that are always part of the scene. Beyond that, there's a green of an algal bloom, and invariably I'll see some geese out there grazing. And they're not grazing under the algae, they're grazing the algae itself. An evening primrose, with a little bit of vervain nearby, that long skinny piece coming in, and it's beyond its season, so it's a little wilted. There's some vervain. The east side is more formal, and there's a gate that's part of what used to be the Burnham Hospital that was nearby and cherished by citizens for many years. And people take wedding photographs there, and last night I came by and there was some Eastern European and Asian people having a fine time together in a small group, all with masks on. Water here is pumped up and it comes through a waterfall, and that also aerates and oxygenates the water. I pan a little to the side so you can see it more close up. We're at pond level now. So this pond can contain a lot of water. The walkway will be covered in a serious storm, 5 or 8 inches, and it will be uncovered again. The water pumped out slowly rather than having flood. Proverbial geese. Not everyone likes them because they hoop all over the place, but they're a part of nature too. And we've provided ponds for them, detention ponds, and we've provided lawns for them, and they really love it. I'm looking at the algal bloom. There's a couple of geese travelling through it right at the moment. Tree with bulbous roots in front of an auditorium, an open air auditorium. You can have a band or people meeting. from the south end looking north. White street in the background. Hello. An old tramway bridge. Champlain Railroad came through about 5 miles west of Urbana, and so freight and people had to be shipped to Urbana with a horse-drawn vehicle. Eventually it was electric, and it's part of our history. So this stone arch bridge was retained.